Hello, Lorelei.
Hi, Roberto.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. And you?
Good. I'm well. I'm well. I'm well. A lot of news happening today, obviously, with the police commissioner. But I want to start with you. I know, obviously, we go way back to your days at Make the Road, Catholic Migration, Consumer Affairs. It was called DCA then, and some of the work you've done, and you've done pretty much you've touched every part of the spectrum, right? From immigration to housing, to workers' protection, consumer protections, et cetera, et cetera. But tell us what you've been doing since your days as commissioner of the Department of Consumer Affairs.
Yes. Well, I stayed in the consumer protection field. I joined the federal government, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I was the head of the largest division in the bureau, which was doing behind the scenes enforcement. So, non public enforcement, making sure that large banks and financial institutions were complying with consumer protection laws. And it was really very rewarding work. I loved it. But my time came to an end in the bureau earlier this year in February with the new administration coming to government. And since then, I've been doing a number of things. I am very proud to be a leader in residence and adjunct professor at the Colin Powell School for Civic and Global Leadership. And I am teaching a class there right now. And also just doing a couple of other projects on my time. Yeah.
All right, let's start with the Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice. You recently co-authored an op-ed with uh, soon-to-be council member Harvey Epstein. Why? Why call for a deputy mayor for economic justice? And I only say that because every time, and I've seen it where Mayor Adams has decided deputy mayor for public safety, some other additions in terms of the deputy mayor role, and some people speak to just government, not just Mayor Adams, but people have a sort of distaste for bloated government, right? Redundancy. Why do you need this? What do we need that? What do you need that? What justifies an office of economic justice when you can technically say, let's empower a current agency like DCWP, or I read the article DOI, or why not just do that? Why is it necessary to create a deputy mayor post for this? And the second question to that, what agencies would, because hypothetically, if it was the case that the incoming mayor decides, great idea, I want to do it, what agencies would live under that deputy mayor? So
Let me, yes.
do um
What
why is it
agencies?
necessary, and two, what agencies would live under that sort of portfolio?
Let me first say that my co-author Harvey Epstein, I also go way back with him. At my time during my time at Make the Road in Catholic Migration Services, who were both in legal services. He later became an assembly member where he championed a couple of laws that my office, the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, needed from Albany. And so I consider him a partner in this work, and that's why we both joined in this op-ed. And so, why do we need that? So, you talked about my experience in government. I worked for city, state, and federal government. And one of the things that I think is really important to keep in mind is that you can have great policy ideas, you can have a million great ideas, and it's really about how you get them done. How do you implement them? One thing that can get in the way, honestly, is agency culture, right? You come in, you are the head of an agency whose team is great and they're used to doing things the way they do them always. And it's hard to lead people through change. So one thing about the mayor's, deputy mayor's role would be that it would be a senior position, a senior role in City Hall that would be making sure that a lot of the great proposals and promises of Mayor-elect Mamdani actually get done with the various agencies that touch those issues. To give you an example, there is a desire to double the staff at the agency at the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. There's a desire to also staff up the City Commission on Human Rights, to create a new office of deep protection, so protecting homeowners from predatory practices that may steal their homes. That would be a new office that has enforcement elements to it that isn't housed anywhere right now, right? And in the past, these agencies have been bounced around different deputy mayors because there was no deputy mayor who was solely responsible for making sure that real everyday New Yorkers had their rights protected and their voices represented. So I do think if I get the you know the feedback about having a bloated government, and you could do this in different ways. You can repurpose an existing deputy mayor's office, but to really signal to people that the promises that were made to deliver for working New Yorkers, to make sure that people can go to work without fear of retaliation, without discrimination, that they can get their paid sick days. They're going to be protected from corporate greed, and that small businesses are going to have a chance to succeed in the city and to compete with big business. Those are things that have not been housed within one single champion at City Hall. And that is why I think it will be super important to have a position like that.
Are you interested in joining the administration? Would you be interested in being the first deputy mayor for economic justice?
I would be lying if I said that I don't think that would be an amazing and challenging position, right? Um, but I do think he has no shortage of talent who will be at his disposal and wanting to join in this really inspiring platform that he ran on. So I'm not concerned about him not finding the right person. I think he will. And what I think would matter a lot too is that he continues to have constant feedback from people who are not in government, right? So he ran a very unifying community-based grassroots campaign, and those are the folks that he will have to check in with regularly over the next 4 years of his administration to make sure that his priorities are translating in the way that he meant them to translate into people's lives, right? So whether within government or outside of government, I am a big supporter of what he wants to accomplish. I have two young adult kids who are 24, 20, 25 now, and 29 years old. And I want them to live in a city that where they can make it, right? Where they can like raise kids just like I did. So I'm a big supporter, a big champion, but again, I don't think he'll find trouble. He'll have trouble finding someone for this job.
Question now, who's paying for it? If you do all right, you ran an agency right there. You have to justify adding lines in a Trump world where there may be some belt tightening. Current Mayor Adams has made some decisions that people are arguing may put this incoming mayor in a deficit. How do you justify, you've dealt with Office of Management and Budget, trying to staff up the agency, trying to get lines. And this would conceivably mean adding to the head count.
Yeah, well, like I said, there are several deputy mayor's offices, and I haven't kept track during the Adams administration. I know several more were created. You could deploy one of those current deputy mayor positions, so you don't have to necessarily add a new office, but you can turn one into this type of economic justice like focus, right? So it doesn't have to mean adding a whole new office. And typically, from my experience in city government, we're talking about 3, 4 people who have like staffed those offices. So it's not a huge lift. It's really more about making sure, again, that across all government, all the agencies that touch on these issues. So you asked me before about what agencies am I thinking about, right? I mentioned the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, Commission on Human Rights, even the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Rights, this new Office of Deed Protection. But I think that this individual, this deputy mayor, would have to be involved in conversations, in dialogue with other agencies that are also touching people's lives in the way that results in economic justice. So, for instance, Corporation Counsel is another agency, a very large agency with hundreds of lawyers that could pursue affirmative litigation against bad actors, right? Bad corporate actors. And I don't think traditionally they've done that work. So this deputy mayor could play a role in making sure, again, that the Corporation Counsel office dedicates some time to that, some existing resources to that work, right? Department of Investigations is another agency. So I do think it's a matter of making sure, again, that the priorities that you run on have a voice in City Hall and actually have influence with the agencies that will carry on that work.
Lorelei, what advice would you give the incoming mayor? If you had a conversation in terms of day one, what are things that you would recommend he look at, again, in the Trump world where we're hearing National Guard, Tom Homan is saying we're coming for New York City. Obviously, SNAP, we're already beginning to work the sort of federal shutdown. What advice would you give incoming Mayor Mamdani?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I can think of two things. One, I already mentioned, is that when he decides staff at his like agencies and offices, to make sure that the people that he brings in are going to be able to lead the city agencies through change, because change is inevitable if he wants to accomplish the things that he promised. Um, and that these people can get things done, right? It's about getting things done. He already has the ideas. Now, how do we deliver? But the other thing that will be super important, and is really hard for government agencies, is to remain nimble, to remain flexible, because, as you said, anything that the Trump administration does will have an effect on New York City and many other cities and states around the country. And we saw it through the shutdown, right? Where people did not have access to food stamps. They couldn't put food on the table, and groceries are more and more expensive every day. How do you then react quickly? Whether it's with existing resources in government, in the city, but also by building coalition and coordination with groups outside of government that can quickly step up to fill the needs that are going to be there, right? And so I think you need to be ready to react to things that are coming from DC, in addition to changing the way in which government has been operated for so long, which is really about, in my opinion, has been about making sure that corporations stay in the city, and that's it. I think now what he wants to see done is very refreshing, but it needs constant work, everyday work.
Let's wrap this up, Lorelei. The three proudest moments in city government.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay, this is kind of sad, but like during COVID, right, we had people who were calling the agency, had a hard time buying face masks, buying thermometers, because people were charging whatever they could for these items. And we quickly published a price gouging rule prohibiting price gouging with respect to those products that people needed to protect themselves from the virus. And we had inspectors in the field every day, making sure that businesses were complying with the rule and that everyday New Yorkers could get these items. So that was a really proud moment for me and for the work that the agency can do. Um, this is vague, but there was sort of like natural collaboration with other agency heads. It wasn't necessarily an effort from City Hall, but naturally with the Taxi and Limousine Commission, with the Commission on Human Rights, uh, the leadership in these agencies got together to make sure that our teams collaborated and did outreach events and served the community in joint events. And I thought that was great. The multiplying effect of those efforts was great. But obviously, it's not one moment. It lasted over of several months and a couple of years, maybe. Um, and I think when we got the Office of Labor Policy and Standards at the agency, and we launched this office that protect workers in New York City, it was hard work to get that done. It was a new a new office with a lot of really great legislation. The city council was very busy passing an expansion of paid sick leave and protections for freelancers, for fast food workers. And so that is, I think, work that feels really great. And I know that the agency is doing a really good job at that right now.
Lorelei, thank you for your time. Anything you want to add that I forgot to ask you in terms of?
Just that it's, it's a very inspiring moment, and like I said, I am really hopeful for what Mayor-elect Mamdani wants to accomplish. I think that I've been very lucky to have the jobs that I've had, and I really hope that every New Yorker here has a shot at making it, at making a go at the city.
Thank you, Lorelei. I appreciate you, and hopefully this won't be the last time we talk. All
Thank
the
you.
best.